It's Thursday, and you all know what. Wait, that's not right. Let me start over. It's Monday, and you all know what that. That's still not right. It's Wednesday. Yes, and you all know what that means. Please forgive me. Still collecting some brain cells that died during that Battlefield Earth watch along, and oh, it's been hard. I But here's Jacob Martin. Jacob, thank you for suffering it through that movie with me. Still the worst movie you ever saw?
It's up there. It definitely is up there. I am still comprehending what I just watched. I get people asking me left and right. I'm like, whenever I post a bad review, especially on Letterboxd, people are like, "Is it still better than Battlefield Earth?" I'm like, "Yes, that movie's bad, but it's still better than Battlefield Earth." I bet even The Happening is more tolerable compared to Battlefield Earth.
I mean, Happening has more like just just things that make you go, "What were you thinking?" Just stuff like that. But Battlefield Earth was just by like an hour in, I was just done. Like I was just like, oh, God. Like just them laughing all the time and how to spell your name. It just the replay is all on my channel if you all would like to check that out. But um, but I hope to have Jacob Collins back on the channel at some point. He's been itching to get back on, and so I'll be going on his channel very soon. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But this is the traditional Wednesday episode, and let's get into it. We'll be diving into Luke Cage season one and be going over an article I found called "The 10 Worst January Movies of the 21st Century," because we are still in the month of January. And while this month has actually been kind of solid this year, January is the trash month for movies. So we're going to be talking about that. But before we do get into that, Jacob, what's something that you've been watching lately?
A movie that I watched this past week that I wanted to highlight that does not have enough love. It's currently free to watch on YouTube, at least at the time of this recording. Is Cats Don't Dance. This is an animated film released in 1997. It was from the same director who later went on to direct The Emperor's New Groove over at Disney. And that movie is one of my childhood favorites. Before he directed that awesome film, he directed Cats Don't Dance over at Warner Brothers, which flopped at the time because of poor marketing. The film involves a singing and dancing cat who travels to Hollywood. I'd like to say in the 1930s, golden age Hollywood. He's trying to make a big break and have a big break in the show business. And he tries to encourage all the other animals that are in Hollywood to be part of this singing and dancing act, who have been rejected because everyone's obsessed with casting humans in the parts. And this movie, there's a little bit of a commentary in there. I think the animals are supposed to like represent, like, I guess, uh, minority groups that got uh, rejected by Hollywood for a good number of years, like black people maybe. But it's not like on the nose commentary. You can just take the movie at face value and still enjoy the animated movie with a lot of great slapstick humor. The musical numbers are really, really strong. The songs were written by Randy Newman. It's got a pretty good voice cast, and if you're a fan of classic Hollywood, there's a lot of great classic Hollywood references you can get into. Like the main character, who's like a singing, dancing cat, is pretty much Gene Kelly almost, because he sings and dances like Gene Kelly, and that was a pretty clever little touch. And there's like this like bratty human girl actress who's literally named Darla Temple, who is pretty much a parody of Shirley Temple if she acted like Veruca Salt in the Willy Wonka movie. She is like psychotic evil in this movie and was absolutely hilarious. The movie is only 75 minutes. A part of me wished the runtime was a little longer so they could flesh out all the characters and stuff, but it's still a really good movie. Nobody talks about it. The people who have seen it, it does have a cult favorite. It is a cult favorite among those who have seen it. I do really like it. It's got great 2D animation. I do enjoy the humor, and the musical sequences are all top notch. It's a really good movie. If you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out.
I remember Nostalgia Critic doing a video on it, if my memory served me right.
Yeah, he did do a video on Cats Don't Dance, and that was when I first heard of the movie. And after I think that intrigued me to eventually check it out, and this was the opportunity to check it out. And it's actually pretty good.
All right, well, I'll definitely have to check you up on that one day. But as far as what I watched goes, I actually saw Plane and I saw A Man Called Otto, which that movie, A Man Called Otto, was really, really good. It's based on the book written by Frederick Bossman, starred Tom Hanks, and I this movie is just a big old bowl of chicken soup for the soul. It is really heartwarming stuff. Tom Hanks has not lost a single step. He's one of those actors that on paper, putting him as a grumps doesn't compute, but he really delivers because the key to making an adaptation of the book, A Man Called Ove, you gotta nail the tragedy of the Ove character while retaining the grumpiness. And the movie did a great job of both. It was directed by Mark Forster, who directed Quantum of Solace, a movie that I personally like, but nobody else seems to, apparently. But it's one of those movies that, being A Man Called Otto, that I thought was just subtly really good, and it's doing pretty well at the box office. So I'm cheering this movie on.
Yeah, it's a movie that it's a movie that I really wanted to see. I can't wait to check it out when I get the chance to check it out. It looked like a really good movie, and I'm glad you really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, well, my question to all of you is, what have you been watching lately? Leave it in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, we have closed out Daredevil season 2. We are now moving on chronologically, according to the MCU Netflix timeline. We are moving on to Luke Cage season 1. And this is your first time watching it. I remember watching this when it first came out, but it has been a while, so I'm basically rewatching this. But the first episode is called Moment of Truth. With tension building in the streets of Harlem, thanks to ruthless club owner Cottonmouth, Luke finds it increasingly difficult to live a quiet life. Now, Jacob, I know that we have now seen Luke Cage as part of Jessica Jones, but before that, had you heard of this show? Had you heard good things?
I'd only heard of Luke Cage by name. I didn't know much about the character. I think the reception for the show, I remember being, I think, pretty solid at best. So I was excited to check the show out when we decided to cover the Netflix shows on this podcast. And I liked Luke Cage, the character, enough when he was introduced in Jessica Jones. And I was hoping this would be another great series. I'd say at the moment, just on one episode, it was kind of a mixed bag. I thought it had a really cool aesthetic to it. I especially really enjoyed the intro and the opening credits and the music. It almost gave off this 70s black exploitation vibe, and I really enjoyed that flavor within these shows. I think that it makes it stand out compared to, I think, the style of music that's in the other shows and the Marvel Netflix timeline. I think of this what's been set up in this first episode. I'm actually really invested in the Cottonmouth stuff because one, he's played by Mahershala Ali, who's a fantastic actor, and just in this one episode, we see that he's a very sneaky guy in a position of power who will do next to nothing to protect his business and his enterprise, even willing to go in some dark, shady directions to stay on top. And I really enjoyed that character. And every time he was on screen, he had some of the best moments that I was genuinely engrossed in. I think it has a very slow build up though, because Luke Cage is hardly in this first episode, and when he is, he's just talking, just trying to live a quiet life. He's trying to make ends meet to pay his rent and all that, and he doesn't really want to use his abilities for anything because he feels like he's not in a good place to do that. He feels like he's a freak who has nothing to live for, pretty much. I have a feeling he'll have that confidence to be, I guess, the hero he's supposed to be by the end of this season. At least I hope that's where they're going with it. But for now, this first episode was almost on the boring side, in my opinion. Nothing against Mike Coulter, I think's his name, who plays Luke Cage. I think he's pretty good. And the final, I think the big action set piece at the end where he takes out those guys at the apartment to the rent lady or whatever, that was a cool moment at the end, but it had such a slow build up. And I'm hoping, I think it gets more engrossing as the series goes on. But for now, it was kind of a less than stellar start.
What'd you think of seeing Alfre Woodard in there?
Oh yeah, I thought she was good. I didn't know she was going to be in this show, but I think she and Mahershala were the highlights of the first episode.
Yeah, I remember because I think I watched this all in one day. It's a bit fuzzy, but I do remember watching this, and I remember liking the vibes more than the actual content, if that makes any sense at all. Like you were saying, the music is that in this is far different than from anything that we've seen in these Netflix shows so far, and different in a good way. I love the jazz. I love the look of the club, Harlem's Paradise. That looks like the perfect setting for a show like this, really. It kind of reminds me, it kind of a similar way of like Rick's Club was in Casablanca. I don't know if that's a weird analogy, but that's where my mind went, I guess.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that.
Yeah, and also shout out to the seeds being planted in the show. I think there could be some potential. Like I like Alfred Woodard's character, the New Harlem Initiative, and on paper it's like, oh, it's this nice thing, but in reality, she's kind of sus and a bit shady. I hope they do something with this in the show because I think it could be interesting to explore things like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I'm hoping the show delivers in the long run instead of end on a whimper like Jessica Jones season 1 and season 2 of Daredevil was.
And what did you think of that scene when the dude punches Luke Cage in the jaw and his wrist just goes bleh?
Oh yeah, that
I
I
winced.
I did wince at that. That's probably the most brute. It was like probably the most bare knuckle thing I think with Luke Cage because I forgot Luke Cage was as strong as steel. It's been a while since we saw him in Jessica Jones. So when that one guy punched him and his pretty much broke his entire wrist and the bone started bleeding out and stuff, like, oh man,
Yeah,
TVMA for a reason.
that whole last few minutes is just crazy. Like he just breaks a bat over his forearm and tosses a dude through the window. And he just like looks at the last guy and he's like, "You want some?" And the guy's like, "I don't even like these guys." And he runs out the door. It's a really, really good little moment there to end the episode.
Yep. Let's get you excited for what the next one is at least.
Yeah, maybe I'm just an optimist, but I'm actually this left me in a good place. I'm it's good, but I think it's gonna get better. But that's just me. But what did you all think of Luke Cage episode one of season one? If you have indeed seen it, leave it in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, well, Jacob, let's get into the main event for the evening. I found an article from moviesandcoolstuff.com called 10 Worst January Movies of the 21st Century. There's a pretty good chance we haven't seen these, and we probably never will, but it's going to be fun to point and laugh at these. So I'm going to rattle these off, Jacob. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, so at number 10, we have movie 43. Now, Jacob, have you heard of this one?
Yes, I have heard of this movie, and apparently it is one of the very worst comedies of all time. I think they gathered like a bunch of random directors and a bunch of random stars to star in these like short sketches of an anthology comedy, and it's all, I think gross out humor and gross out humor that's done in poor taste. And I think it's won a lot of Razzies, if I'm not mistaken, and it's seen as one of the worst comedies of all time.
Yeah, and this was directed by Peter Farrelly, who would go on to win for Best Picture for Green Book. So
Wow.
talk about a leap in just achievement from going from one of the worst comedies ever made to the, according to the Academy, the best movie of 2019.
Yeah.
It's a
And
crazy, or
he
2018.
wasn't the only director that worked on that too. I think James Gunn directed one segment, and I think there were other directors that worked on it too.
Hang on, let me look, because if my memory serves, I remember reading it somewhere. I think this was meant to be like the Zucker brothers were to have some involvement. Or there are actually 12 directors are attached to this. So Elizabeth Banks, Stephen Brill, Steve Carr, Rusty Cundieff, James Duffy, Griffin Dunn, Peter Farrelly, there we go, Patrick Forsberg, Will Graham, James Gunn, there you go, Brett Ratner, and Jonathan Van Tulikin. And Bob Odenkirk has an uncredited director's credit. I mean, good for him not getting credited for this piece of crap.
But
But
yeah, the reputation of this movie and the little I know about the movie made me not want to see it. Some of the jokes that are in the film, I'm like, yeah, that just looked like a disaster from the get go.
yeah, well, at number 9 is a movie called Vice. And at first, when I read this, I'm like, wait a minute, the movie about Dick Cheney? And it turns out, no, there is an entirely different movie called Vice. It was released in 2015, and it starred, take a wild guess, Jacob. It's January, and let me read you the premise. Vice, where customers can play out their wildest fantasies with artificial inhabitants who look like humans. Take a wild guess who stars in this. He stars in a lot of direct DVD stuff.
Let me guess. Bruce Willis probably.
You are a winner. Bruce Willis stars in this piece of crap alongside Thomas Jane. This movie has a 17 on Metacritic and a 4.2 on IMDb.
Hmm. I've never
Bruce
even heard of this movie.
Bruce Willis stars alongside Thomas Jane in this science fiction flick, which borrows generously from a range of far more interesting sources, including Blade Runner and Westworld. And we've talked about it in several preview episodes, but it's just a shame that Bruce Willis is like in just all of these just crappy direct to DVD stuff. It's like, why? Like, it just makes no sense. But I mean, maybe he just has a certain schedule he likes to stick to. Who knows?
It also doesn't help that I think he did a lot of those around the time when his health was worsening and he had that condition where uh, he's losing the ability to speak. So he's in these small roles where his dialogue is very minimal, and people think he's phoning it in, but it's just his health conditioning worsening over time. And it's just sad to see him in that state where you want to see him succeed, but it's just sad to see, honestly.
Yeah, well, at number 8 is a movie called Best Night Ever. This has a 17 on Metacritic and a 4 on IMDb. This is directed by Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer. They're not going they're this is not their last appearance on this list. Riding on the success of The Hangover and Bridesmaids, it tells the story of 4 women on a wild bachelorette party in Las Vegas. Adopting the tired found footage concept was the first in a long line of mistakes for this poor excuse for a film, which critics tore apart for its bad direction and terrible writing, which includes an excessive amount of gross out humor. I defend found footage quite a bit. I think there are some good found footage movies out there. Chronicle and Cloverfield are just 2 examples, and End of Watch is another one. But yeah, this sounds like a dud. This sounds like a big old dud.
Yeah, knowing it's those directors who a lot of people believe killed the parody genre, I don't think that really helps their case out either.
Yeah, and it's not gonna be their last appearance here. I took a look, and it's like they're on here a couple more times. Next up is In the Name of the King, a Dungeon Siege Tale, because it wouldn't be a January list without Uwe Boll popping up on there somewhere. Because I've actually seen this, and yeah, it's just as bad as you might think it is. If my memory serves, look, I know Jason Statham is in this, but I believe
What?
also, yeah,
Why did Jason Statham star in a new Bowl movie?
I don't know. I guess he needed to pay for something, but look at this. Let me rattle off some of this cast. Jason Statham, Ron Perlman, Hang Your Heads in Shame, Ray Liotta, may he rest in peace, Lily Sobieski, John Rhys Davies, Claire Forlani, Matthew Lillard from Scream and the Scooby-Doo movies. I, I do not know what Uwe Boll got on these people, but
Oh
they're
my god.
apparently in this movie.
Uh,
Jeez
uh,
Louise.
how did I don't know how that happened. Either he was blackmailing him to be in this movie, or they were on the end of their rope and just needed an easy paycheck. I don't know.
It Either way, it does not sound that good. Well, at number 6 is a movie called Fascination, which fascinatingly, I have never heard of this one.
Me neither.
Uh, the reviews for Fascination were vicious, criticizing the performances by Adam Garcia and Alice Evans. Adam Garcia stars as a young man investigating his mother's new fiance, who comes on the scene quickly after his father's suspicious death. The search for the truth leads to a romance with the fiance's daughter, although it's unclear whether she can really be trusted. This film, described on IMDb as a thriller, proved in reality to be anything but.
Yeah, I didn't know this movie was a thing, and the movie doesn't. It sounds like a bunch of other similar movies done worse. So yeah, it doesn't look like an intriguing movie to me.
And shout out to Jacob Collins, this one's on Tubi. So, you know how it is saying is shooting fish in a barrel and all of that. Well,
Oh
next
yeah.
up at number 5 is a movie called State Property. This has a 9 on Metacritic with a 4.3 on IMDb. State Property was less an independent piece of film and more promotional material for its accompanying album. The soundtrack, which included 13 songs by the rap group of the same name, actually received mildly positive reviews. The same cannot be said for this atrocious cinematic offering. So this smells like a vanity project to me.
Oh yeah. What was the name of the group again?
State Property.
I've never heard of this group, so it must not have done enough to boost their careers or anything.
No, I mean the movie came out in 2002. It's been 20 years and this is the first time I'm hearing of it. So whatever their goal was, they completely whiffed it. And next up at number 4 is another Uwe Boll movie, Blood Rain. Now, I've actually seen the Nostalgia Critic review of this, and honestly, they were being too nice. This movie stars Ben Kingsley. Ben Kingsley, Gandhi, Ender's Game, too many other movies to mention. He is the villain in this,
Oh my gosh.
along with Michelle Rodriguez and Michael Madsen.
Oh my gosh. How did they get these actors in these crappy movies?
As like I said, there it must involve pictures of some kind. But this is based on a video game because of course it is. It couldn't be an
Didn't
Uwe Boll movie. It was based off a game of some kind.
there was another one that he did that apparently was really bad too. It was like I forgot the name of it. These characters on an island or something.
Oh, House of the Dead.
Oh, thank you.
Well, next up, we're returning at number 3 to Friedberg and Seltzer, Epic Movie. This has a 17 on Meta and a 2.4 on IMDb. And keep in mind, this is based off user scores Over 100,000 user scores, it got a 2.4. So
Ooh,
that's pretty bad.
yeah, it's not good. I've heard of this one. Like I've heard of these directors' works, and I've not heard any good things about any of their movies. Like people are like, these are terrible excuses of parodies that rely more so on the references, which instantly date the movie, and gross out humor, which doesn't really do anything to add to what they're spoofing. And I think I had read these directors had like no care about the material they were spoofing and just wanted to make ugly movies as much as possible. So it doesn't surprise me that these directors haven't had any big movies in a while because nobody likes them, and it looks like this one's one of them.
I don't know what's sadder, the fact that they cast Fred Willard in this, may he rest in peace, but they got Crispin Glover, and he plays Willy Wonka in the movie.
What? That's actually a good casting if done in the right hands, because Crispin Glover's a crazy person in general. But why that movie?
I don't know. It almost kind of makes me want to watch it just to see what happens, but I probably shouldn't. I'd probably know better. Well, next up in number two, again, Friedberg and Seltzer, Meet the Spartans.
Yeah, I think this one like their most infamous one.
Yeah, which didn't make any sense to me because I thought there was like another 300 parody, like 306 or something. Hang on, let me look. I specifically remember it was like 307, 308. It was a 300 parody. I'll probably think of it later, but I mean, 300's just awesome. So watch that. But I mean, ugh, doesn't sound
Yeah,
right at all.
yeah, that one does sound pretty bad. I know we did another one called I think Vampires Suck, which spoofed the Twilight movies. And even though I never got into the Twilight movies, even the parody version looked just as bad, if not worse, than the movie they were making fun of.
They got Carmen Electra as Queen Margot in that movie. The
Oh
only thing I
no.
know her for is that she was, I believe, married to Dennis Rodman once upon a time. So
Okay.
real quality stuff right here.
That's crazy.
And it's currently streaming on HBO Max. So some of the best movies of all time, and then also Meet the
The
Spartans.
Spartans.
And then finally, at number one on this list is Alone in the Dark, which is another Uwe Boll movie starring Christian Slater. And this is based on another game, and this is another Nostalgia Critic review that I've seen. And yeah, it's pretty bad just from looking at the footage.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that video, but I think on one of the Uwe Boll movies, I think uh, when didn't the sound critic he pretended to be mute or whatever, and he was talking through a voice box. I don't know if it was Alone in the Dark or
No,
if it
no, it
was.
was that one. He was miming like he couldn't talk, and then Linkara would sometimes go over and be like, "I like to wear women's clothing. I like to wear women's," through the voice box. But they got Christian Slater in this. They got Steven Dorff in this, which I mean, he was Deacon Frost in Blade. Like he's been in some very good stuff, but not this. It's got a 2.4 on IMDb and a 9 on Metacritic, a singular rating. So it must be very bad. And it's weird because I read somewhere that like Uwe Boll makes a ton of money despite making these terrible movies. It's like some tax thing. I'm sure someone out there knows what the situation is, but just drives you nuts. It really does.
Yeah, it's crazy, and then even like reading about the guy made me not want to watch any of his movies because he's such a bad sport when it comes to other people. Like he insults critics who hates his movies and calls them horrible names and even challenges them to boxing matches because he thinks he's better than them, which I can't stand that attitude at all. And I think he even had bold claims thinking his movies were going to do better than some of the big blockbusters. And I don't know how, I don't know why he kept making a bunch of movies over the years because nobody liked them. And I don't think his movies were that successful. So it's weird.
Yeah, it's an odd situation. I believe he let me check on this because I believe I heard a long time ago that he was actually on Letterboxd.
What?
But I could be wrong. I'm gonna look it up right now.
It's probably a troll account if he's on Letterboxd. He's probably like, Steven Spielberg sucks.
I think he
Francis
gave
Ford
like
was a
one
hack.
star. I think he gave like 1 star to Black Panther or something.
What? Oh my god.
I
He
I
thinks his movies are great, probably. He's like, 1 star to Black Panther and 5 stars to my movie, Alone in the Dark, and you're stupid if you don't watch or enjoy my movies.
it's like at least Tommy Wiseau like leans into. All right, let's see. It's on Twitter. Uwe Boll's letterbox account is a really powerful source of comedy. Let's see. I haven't got the account, but I've seen some screen grabs of like say these parody movie The Hungover Games from 2014, 2.5 stars. The review says I liked the breasts.
Oh no. Oh no.
Half a star to Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Effing garbage, only children will like it. Adult man child with the gummy bears in the bears and all of this stuff. So stupid.
Oh no.
Shazam, half of a star. For nerds and geeks, not normal human beings. So he subscribes to the Martin Scorsese school of thought.
That sounds
Uh,
like a troll account though.
Ed Wood, he gave 4 stars to.
Oh,
Why
that's
do
good.
why do I have to be dead before Hollywood makes some movie about my life? No, I'm not like this guy, but still. Trust me, pal. You're not that guy, pal. You're not.
I can see them making Uwe Boll biopic years down the line. And they get like Dave Bautista to play him or something.
Man. The world of bad movies is just so weird. Like the people like just think because and won't go too deep into this, but it just when people say like stuff from like last year or a year before is like the worst like of all time, I'm just like, there's a seedy underbelly of stuff that you probably never even heard of that is subtly worse. Because at least with something like, say, Men from last year, which was just horrible, that movie at least had some amount of effort put into it, like into the production, into making it look good. Stuff like Battlefield Earth, just as a recent example, it just felt like just a vanity project, like with no real effort put forth. It's just like here is like just terrible.
Yeah, and I think the good thing to come out of all of this, the movie you talked about, that I think most of them I hadn't even heard of, and the few that I have heard of, I've never seen them, nor have I had any real interest to check them out. So if that says anything about the quality on that list.
Yeah, it's like with guys like Uwe Boll and Tommy Wiseau, it's like ships lost in fog. They're noisiest when they're lost. Like the noisy ones are the ones that think like theirs is the greatest, when in reality, not even close. But I posed the
And Tommy was
question.
so in on the joke though, and when it comes to the room, like he realizes it's bad, and he's embracing like the people embracing the absurdity of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a career out of it, going to like live shows and just all these other things. I mean, Greg Sestero wrote a whole book about it. So there's that. But I posed the question to all of you watching, what's your favorite bad movie? We all have one. The one where we know it's horrible, but we watch at it just to like point and laugh at it. Leave it in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. And if you have one or just one or multiple, that's fine too. Well, Jacob, that's another episode in the books. It was really fun poking fun at these awful movies with you. I'm looking forward to doing it again. But thank you all. Thank you so much. It's a privilege as always. We've got something big coming up on your channel. Actually, it's already happened by the time this episode drops, but tell them about it.
Well, it's already dropped by the time this drops, but when you're watching this on Wednesday, we've already done our discussing DreamWorks on Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, which was a childhood favorite of mine back when it came out in 2002. I had a great time rewatching this movie, and uh, well, I've already recorded the episode, and it'll already be on there by the time this drops. And I'm sure it was a great conversation, and I'm excited to talk with Ryan about this criminally underrated DreamWorks movie.
Yeah, that will be the replay as when this drops. The replay will be available on Jacob's channel. It will be linked in the description. Go give him a subscribe there. Other than discussing DreamWorks, what else have you got cooking?
I don't have any other real big videos planned this week. I will have I do have a hangout discussion with another YouTuber that I'm doing Thursday morning at 9 a.m. With a YouTuber named Henry Mockingbird. I wanted to share that guy's content and share his channel and do like a live chat and stuff. And I'll do my What I've Watched weekly live stream, which will be on Saturday morning. I'm scaling back on my channel a little bit since I'm about to go back to school. My official move. Actually, I officially start school as of this recording in 2 weeks, which is hard to believe.
Yeah, I'm pulling for you hard. It's going to be nice to have a spiritual advisor on the podcast along with a co-host. But do go give Jacob a subscribe. That his channel will be linked in the description, as it always is. And as for this channel, just dropped my latest Shyamalan project video for The Happening. Yeah, it was as bad as advertised, as well as continuing my road to Creed 3 with Rocky 2. Next week, it will be Avatar, or not Avatar, but just The Last Airbender. The TV show and the movie should be far separate from each other in every conceivable fashion. But I will have Mike Thomas, the novice cinephile, joining me to roast that movie as it so deserves. And then I will be covering Rocky 3. And I do plan on seeing Missing, the new standalone sequel to Searching. And I'm hoping that that is very good, and I will have a review up for that. But thank you all so much for watching. As always, for Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. You take care now.